Ever seen a love story morph into a custody battle before the divorce papers even hit the table? That's the energy swirling around Montecito right now. A strange, unsettling calm that feels less like peace and more like the tense stillness before a California storm. Meghan Markle, the Duchess turned lifestyle guru, may be preparing a move nobody expected, though in hindsight, maybe everyone should have. Reports suggest she's inching toward a reunion with the one man she once swore off in front of the world, her father Thomas Markle. And here's where the twist slices deeper. Prince Harry might be the very reason this ghost from Meghan's past is re-entering the picture. Let's rewind. On Oprah's couch, Meghan tearfully described her father's absence not as a physical loss, but an emotional death, the finality of betrayal wrapped in paparazzi deals and tabloid headlines. She mourned the relationship as if it were beyond resurrection. But lately, whispers suggest regret is replacing grief. Not just regret over her father, but regret over the chain reaction that followed her marriage to Harry, her siblings, her old ties, her independence, even her sense of control. One decision set off 1,000 fractures. And here's the kicker: Harry himself has repeatedly admitted, both in his Netflix documentary and in Spare, that he played a role in pushing Meghan further from her family. His advice, his judgment, his determination to shield her, whatever you call it, his fingerprints are all over the fracture. Which means if Meghan does pick up the phone and call Daddy now, Harry's quiet admissions suddenly read less like love and more like liability. It's the kind of irony you can't script. Meghan, the woman who once wept about losing her father, may be preparing to stage a tearful reunion with him, and the very confessions Harry made in the name of love could become the receipts that flip the entire narrative against him. But wait, silence wasn't the only clue. The breadcrumbs were already there. Paparazzi lenses reportedly caught unusual movement near Thomas Markle's quiet home in Mexico, while journalists began sniffing around old archives, resurrecting Meghan's long-forgotten Father's Day tribute where she once called herself his little buckaroo. On their own, these fragments look harmless, even nostalgic. But stitched together, they start to look like the warm-up act for something far bigger, a carefully staged family redemption arc that no PR strategist could buy. Because make no mistake, if Meghan does pivot toward reconciliation, it won't just be about forgiveness. It will be optics, a transformation of character. She's no longer the estranged daughter hardened by betrayal. She becomes the woman brave enough to face regret, soften her stance, and heal old wounds. And in that instant, Harry's role gets rewritten. He's no longer the savior who rescued her from a toxic family. He becomes the wedge who drove her away, the villain in a story he once thought he was narrating. And that's the danger of perception. It doesn't need the full truth, it only needs the right performance. Meghan understands this game better than most. She knows the difference between facts and feelings in the court of public opinion. The facts say Thomas Markle sold her out to the tabloids. But feelings? Feelings say maybe he was just a broken father, desperate to stay close to his daughter. Feelings say maybe Harry's influence was harsher than anyone realized. In Hollywood terms, it's a masterstroke. Reframe the story, recast the roles, and suddenly Meghan is the daughter seeking healing while Harry looks like the man who locked her away from her own bloodline. It doesn't matter whether it's true. What matters is that it plays well, and right now the stage lights are shifting, and in the shadows another player quietly exits the stage. Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother and once her silent, elegant anchor, is said to have drifted away from the Montecito mansion, leaving her daughter without the emotional safety net she had always relied upon. Sources whisper that she's either disillusioned or simply exhausted. But either way, Meghan's maternal pillar is no longer standing beside her. And when one lifeline is cut, it's often the most unlikely one that gets picked up. Enter Thomas Markle, the father, who once embarrassed her on the global stage, now suddenly re-emerging as the wild card in her survival deck. It's almost poetic in its irony. The man once painted as the ultimate betrayal, the one who supposedly sold his daughter out for a handful of tabloid checks, could soon be recast as the only parent who still cares enough to show up. And while Thomas has never been subtle, his interviews have swung wildly. Between heartbreak and hostility, there are murmurs that this time he's not only open to reconciliation, but actively preparing to defend Meghan publicly if push comes to shove. The twist gets sharper when you remember where Thomas has always placed the blame. Not on Meghan, but on Harry. In interviews after the royal wedding, Thomas repeatedly emphasized that Harry never picked up the phone, never tried to meet him, never played the role of a decent son-in-law. That wound has festered for years, and now it could serve as the very leverage Meghan needs. Because if Thomas's old words resurface, Harry looks less like the devoted husband shielding his wife, and more like the cold barrier that cut a daughter off from her father. So here we are. Meghan, stripped of her mother's support, circling back to the father she once disowned, and in doing so, positioning Harry as the common enemy. A family dynamic that once played out in whispers is now being dragged back into the spotlight, and the man who used to be her greatest embarrassment may soon become her greatest ally. And this is where the irony bites hardest. Harry, once cast as Meghan's fearless protector, now looks increasingly like the architect of her isolation. The very words he once spoke with raw sincerity about shielding her from toxic relatives, about guiding her decisions in the name of love, are being replayed through a crueler lens. In Spare in the Netflix documentary, even in casual interviews, Harry left a paper trail of confessions that sounded noble then, but today read more like evidence of control. What once felt romantic now feels restrictive. The optics are brutal. Meghan is being reframed as the daughter searching for redemption, her father suddenly recast as the flawed but forgiving parent, while Harry is repositioned as the wedge that kept them apart. And as Meghan edges toward this potential reunion, Harry's absence from her side becomes louder than any statement he could make. He's been spotted alone at events, absent from joint appearances rumored to be living apart from her more often than not. To the public, it paints a picture not of partnership but of estrangement, two narratives running on parallel tracks, and Harry falling behind. The cruel twist: Harry's greatest vulnerability is self-inflicted. His open book honesty, once praised as refreshing, now risks becoming his undoing. He doesn't need an accuser. His own voice already testifies against him. Meghan doesn't have to stand in a courtroom and call him controlling the world, has his words already printed, already streamed, already viral. And so the knight in shining armor starts to resemble a warden of isolation. Meghan, poised for her redemption arc, can step forward with tears and forgiveness, while Harry is left stranded as the man who tried to protect her by cutting the very ties she now seeks to mend. It's a devastating role reversal, and the audience is already adjusting to the new script. This is the moment the stage lights shift. For months, Meghan has been running low on public sympathy, her once polished image dulled by failed projects and endless scrutiny. But a tearful reunion with Thomas Markle. That's not just a family moment, it's a redemption arc tailor-made for cameras. Imagine the visuals: Meghan framed by soft lighting, hugging the very man she once disowned, tears rolling as she whispers about forgiveness and healing. It's emotional alchemy, turning estrangement into empathy, regret into applause. And whether the reunion is genuine or strategic almost doesn't matter, because perception is the currency, and Meghan knows how to mint it. If that scene plays out, Harry doesn't just fade into the background, he's erased from the frame altogether. Meghan emerges as the daughter brave enough to rebuild, while Harry becomes the obstacle that broke it in the first place. Every confession from Spare, every raw moment from the Netflix documentary, every offhand remark he thought was vulnerability now reads like evidence against him. The love story he hoped would define him transforms into a cautionary tale of control and regret. Meanwhile, the palace keeps its silence, but don't confuse silence for indifference. They're watching closely because a Markle family reunion has the potential to overshadow even royal headlines. The media would feast on every angle: the daughter's forgiveness, the father's redemption, the husband's absence. It's the kind of narrative shift that doesn't just play on TV screens, it reshapes reputations in courtrooms, in contracts and custody arrangements. And here's the final twist of the knife Thomas Markle once vilified, as the man who betrayed his daughter suddenly stands to become the father who never gave up. Meghan gets her comeback. Thomas gets his absolution. And Harry. He's left standing offstage, scriptless, watching the spotlight he once shared turn into a glare that exposes him as little more than a footnote in Meghan's rewritten story.